Record. Got it.
Okay, ready.
Cool. Oh, yay. It looks great. Look at all the pink. China loves pink. Great diversity of photos.
What's that?
Welcome, everyone. Feel free to post where you're from. Some of our other journeyers with us. Make sure to mute. Hi, Marcella. Nice to see you here.
There might be. I could have to start video. Here we go.
Jody, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. All right. Welcome, everyone. Great to see you here. Welcome to China is Not Our Enemy Report Back. Please post in the group chat where you're coming in from. I see we have a couple of our fellow travelers with us here. So welcome, welcome. While we're waiting a couple of minutes for people to come in, it'd be great also if you could put in the chat if there's anyone here that's also familiar or has been to Xinjiang. A reminder that this is a report back by 3 friends who went to, with curiosity, went to see a part of China that we don't hear a lot about, and we were curious to see for ourselves. That's what we're here to do, tell you about that journey. And again, if you want to just post in the chat, oh, lived there in 1987, John. Wow, last there in 2014. So cool. When we get to questions and answers, I can't wait to hear from you. Best reasons ever. We will agree with you there. Best dried fruit ever in all of its forms. But I mean, those dates, man, those are amazing. Okay, well, and also here's a collage of photos from our trip that Megan pulled together just to give you a sense of some of the places, some of the food, some of the people, some of the ecology that was vast that we were able to experience. So I just want to start talking about our campaign, China is Not Our Enemy. This campaign was started to stop a war. It's 5 years ago now, actually, right now, where the smoke of language and words being used to drive a war that I'm super familiar with, having been at CODEPINK, which start, weapons of mass destruction and, people being anti-Semitic and, the whole how words are used. So this campaign is about information being weaponized to start a war. And I had no idea what a forest of weeds I was walking into when this began. It is super profound that we talk about China silencing voices when what I've experienced for the last 5 years are attempts to silence mine. I have been a peace activist for over 50 years. I give my life for people, planet, and peace. I have not paid to do this. I've been a volunteer for the last 25 years of my life. So as we share the experiences of visiting Xinjiang, we're sharing our experiences, that we're not sharing anything that we don't know. I think you should know that the 3 of us were threatened before having this webinar, so that kind of speaks for itself in the weaponization and the attempts for silencing. This campaign is not about China. It is about stopping the US from going to war on China. The message is China is not our enemy, because the US uses and distorts information to drive people to hate other people that they don't even know, so they will agree to fund war on them. That is dehumanization. We want to humanize. Distortions are crafted to serve deaths, and I, Megan, and Susie are about serving life. We have seen the power of words, like weaponized mass destruction, which was created by a marketing team that resulted in the murder of over 5 million, mostly Muslims, in the Middle East. We have seen the weaponizations of the word rape, which is a very real and horrific violent act used for the murder, used to push the murder of probably almost 200,000 Palestinians. Words have power, and they can be used for destruction. The results of the US war on China are unthinkable, especially as we see the amount of money and weaponry being spent and piling up around China. What we're doing here is about life. It's about humanity. It's about connection. And I'm talking to you from Los Angeles, where I'm experiencing, a community that is suffering from just the extremities of a fire. And I think about how much money is being spent to drive war, and it makes me shake. So I just want to say, we went to Iraq before the US bombed Iraq. CODEPINK led many trips to Gaza in 2009, took 1,000 people to witness. So we are following in the footsteps of what CODEPINK does. We go to the place. We create friends. We try to learn. We try to be able to come back and make this about people. So my only connection to the Uyghurs had been eating their amazing food in cities of China I had been in, dancing with them in Sanya, Shanghai, and experiencing their generosity and the richness and nourishment of their culture. But I'd never really sat down to get to know them. So going there was important for me to understand the culture. And I have to say, for the minute I stepped off the bus in Kashgar, I learned myself how dehumanized they were for even me. I really knew little about them except genocide that had been attached to their name. So let us start with, no one calls them by their true name. We were corrected all the time. It's Uyghur. It is, and so let's just start with the fact that we don't even call them by their true names. So I turn it over to Megan to kind of give us an overview of where we went and where we're going to take you on this conversation.
Thank you, Jody. So just a brief background to add to what Jody said. So Xinjiang is an autonomous region in northwest China, composed predominantly of mountains and deserts. There's many ethnic minority groups that live there, including the Uyghur people, of which there are nearly 11 million. And the region is known for its route along the Silk Road, linking China to countries across Central Asia and the Middle East. So because of Xinjiang's vast borders with Tibet and Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, it's a melting pot of different cultural influences. And just a general breakdown of the province, there's about 85% Uyghur people, 13% Han Chinese, and then the rest are other ethnic groups. So there's about 13 long-dwelling groups, including, Mongolian, Tajik, Manchu, Tartar, and Hui. So, we hear the word Uyghur a lot in the media, but nobody really seems to know a lot about them. Like Jody mentioned, we don't even pronounce their name correctly. So other than our desire to witness the actual lived experience of the people today, the good, the bad, everything in between, we also seek to humanize them, to understand them, to foster a relationship with them. You know, they're people, not just a word, and they live these vast, unique lives. What is it like? What are their lives like? This is what we wanted to learn. I think it's also important to note our contributions to this discussion are limited by our own experiences. Xinjiang is enormous with so many people. It would be impossible to traverse the entire region. So we could only bring back what we witnessed, the limited places we traveled, the people we talked to, the perspectives we heard from. So, you know, whatever you learned today, know that there's so much more to learn, and so much of it we have to be active participants in. This is a witness report about what we learned, but also a call to continue learning and to devote yourself to that. So, just a general overview of the trip. We flew into Kashgar, which is a city in the far west near the Tajik border. And the city is known for its old bazaars, due to it being a stop along the Silk Road, as well as hosting one of the largest mosques in the region, the Idka Mosque, which you'll see a bit later, from the 15th century. That's known for holding up to 20,000 people. And we traveled a bit around the area, visiting Shache in York Kent County and exploring the deserts and the mountains nearby, which you'll hear more about soon. So Kashgar, it's a pretty interesting place in itself. It's one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. It dates back to around the first millennia BC, and the population now is around 700,000. The earliest recorded name for the city was Shufu and then Shula, but the origin of Kashgar, it's not known for certain. There are some, you know, differences in opinions, but some scholars believe the Xuanzang Buddhist scholar recorded the name Kasi when he passed through in around in the 600s. But I think the full name Kashgar appeared during the Song Dynasty. And in today in China, it's still pronounced Kashgar. So the Kashgar region spans about 1,500 square kilometers. You have the Tian Shan Mountains in the north, which translates to the Heavenly Mountains, and the Karakoram Mountains in the Ali region in the south. You have the Paramore Plateau in the west, and then the Taklamakan Desert to the east, which is China's largest desert. And, you know, Kashgar, it's particularly significant today because it's, you know, the largest distribution center for agricultural products, for animal projects, and it's a port for, you know, east-west trade and transportation. It's now one of the crucial hubs for China's Silk Road economic belt that expands across the borders and connects countries in the region. In recent years, Kashgar has grown exponentially. It's believed to continue doing so as well. In 2023, there was about a 31 billion yuan increase in the city's GDP, and that was led to an increase of about 8% per capita disposable income. So it's growing, it's continuing to grow, and when we first got there, first and foremost, you know, from our readings and our discussions with our local Uyghur guide Mohammed, you know, the region has a very turbulent and complicated history, going back and forth, as you know, many regions in China did, as you know, from dynasty to dynasty, as they rose and fell. You know, as well as a number of provincial rulers and a brief occupation by Tsarist Russia in Britain before the establishment of the PROC in 1949. So it's quite difficult to keep up with all of it, and I won't dive too much into the details because there's a lot, but if you are interested, I have some great resources that I can share in a follow-up email. So other than that, you know, Islam has been practiced for many years in China, and it's thought to have been introduced along the Silk Road during the Tang Dynasty, I believe, and now there's estimated to be about 20 million practicing Muslims in China. And lots of Uyghurs self-identify as Muslim and practice to varying degrees, but there's also many Uyghurs that are non-religious or that follow other religions. You know, it's really very interesting to learn about how Sufism was very strongly rooted in their practices, as well as, you know, Buddhism, Confucianism, and shamanism. It's a very unique combination of influences, all mixing and merging to form what it is today. So there's a brief background. Let's get into some first impressions. I have this short clip that I want to play to start. You know, some of the interactions you have when you travel somewhere new. is with children. They're curious and unafraid, and they'll come up to you and talk to you with no hesitation. And it was the same in Kashgar. And I think you learn a lot just from how kids interact with you. So I'll play this video. I think it speaks for itself.
Hello. 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 Hello.
So yeah, I found the children to be very polite, full of energy, lots of energy, and very willing to talk and interact with strangers. They were out playing at all hours, sometimes with little parental supervision, and they were very cute. They loved our friend Tag. So, okay, Susie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susie, and thanks for being here. Yeah, and just to also introduce myself, I know we've got people here who really, anthropologists, experts, people who've lived in the region. So I'm sort of humbled to be here. I probably know less than most of the people on the call. I really went there to learn, to get to meet some people because I'd only really heard one word about the place. And I think for me, so many things were just so surprising and have left me with so many questions. I'm half Iranian. My other side is British, but I'm also a US citizen. And while I'd heard a lot about this region and the people, again, around one topic, I didn't really realize like the sense that it would feel so close to home and that it was the first place that I visited in the month that I spent in China for the first time. It was the first place that really felt different. And to me, at least, in the few days I spent there, felt much closer to Iran than some of the other, just much more sort of Middle Eastern than, say, the other cities and countryside I'd been to. So I was surprised to realize that I could understand a lot of, not a lot, but a good proportion of words. Like the days of the week are very similar to Farsi. As Megan mentioned, there's a big Sufi influence there that I didn't know about. So I was just really surprised, again, humbled by my own ignorance, but how the people kind of looked like a lot of my relatives who are in Iran. Like my heritage is more from the Tatar side, not the so different ethnic group, but just like the faces I saw, I remember, I'm going to say something really dumb, but that day I was sort of thinking, oh, shall I do my eyebrows? I've got thinning eyebrows. I used to have a monobrow, and I thought, I'll do it. And then lo and behold, I see, the style is very big eyebrows. It's very bling. It just felt much more like Iran than I expected. The pomegranates, the dancing, the textiles, the glam that I saw. So that was just really surprising that I thought I would be going somewhere that was sort of like very, very foreign and very strange, but actually it felt, it reminded me of somewhere very familiar to me. So that was a real, it was exciting and humbling. So yeah.
Thanks, Susie. So why don't we start with just getting off the bus, that surprising moment. I mean, for Susie, for you, it was like feeling at home. And we saw the kids. So, what about just walking into the old city and what did it feel like for you as we just entered? I mean, for me, it was welcoming, I just want to say. And also, I just felt dumb. Like, how did I not know any of this? Everything I saw was surprising. And I just felt like, wow, I know nothing. I realized about who Uyghur was and what their life was like and what they liked and yeah.
I think right off the bat, one of the things we all noticed was that Kashgar had its own very unique regional style that differed from many other areas in China. I hear locals talking about how northern China has a grungier sort of style in the south. Like they have these local stereotypes similar to the US, but Western China, wow, they really love their furs and their bling and their high heels. So of course, you know, along with the style, there was all these stores that we passed, some with more traditional wear and others that were a lot more modern. But I think that's one of the things I noticed first and foremost as somebody that loves fashion.
Susie, anything else take you?
I think what I was really surprised by was the emphasis on tourism, because I thought, again, what I'd heard, I had this impression of this very um, controversial, closed off area. And then when we went there and arrived, it was so like touristy in a way. Like we got to the center that was very much about tourist gifts and, you know, doing photo shoots with traditional outfits. And so thinking that, oh, this is this very controversial region, oh, it's impenetrable, but actually to go and then realize, oh, it's like really touristy. And then to learn that, like, I think if I'm not wrong, like hundreds of millions of tourists go here. I think like 200 million tourists go here. And then to realize that I then learned that there are like loads of YouTubers who go, and that you don't, some countries you don't, you know, you don't necessarily need a visa. You can just go, you can make your own plans. You don't need an official, just kind of do what you want to do. I mean, I think at least we seem to. So I think I was really surprised about how big tourism is there, how much they're focusing on it. We saw so much construction of like lovely kind of bed and breakfast type places, you know. So it just felt again similar to when I would go to sort of fairly touristy places in lots of other parts of Central Asia or the Middle East, and then you're going, yeah, but I want to go to the ancient bit. Let me go there. So I think just realizing like how accessible it is in terms of tourism, how they seem to be into that, welcoming that, I was really surprised.
And Megan's just put up the photos of eating on the street. So I think the street food, which, you know, we walked straight into as soon as we arrived. And I just want to, I think that's one of the things is that the culture is all about food. Which, you know, kind of reminds me of Palestinians, you know, it's the fishermen and it's even, you know, the wearing of the keffiyeh, it's all about the food. So just all about the food. And I think that was for me the first greeting of just the breads and the meats and the vegetables and the dried fruit and the nuts and it's just the generosity, the overflowing nature. We ran into this a lot, but the generosity part where like, taste this, have this, you know, there's no you have to buy anything. There was more just like the generosity of wanting to experience was one of my first surprises.
I was happy to see lots of pomegranate juice everywhere. So on the top right, you just see so many pomegranate stands, and then they make it in front of you, and so just could have loads of pomegranate juice. So yeah, very foodie. We'll show you pictures later of like tea houses and coffee shops, and just yeah, just like food and visually just a lot to feast your all your senses.
Yeah,
So
I was also really taken with the pomegranate juice, and then the great metaphor that the beautiful pomegranate was sour and the ugly pomegranate was very sweet and delicious.
all right, and their willingness to teach us, you know, like to explain to us those kinds of things. So Megan, before we leave our first night, can you remind me, because I don't want to, I'm an exaggerator, but my sense is the Kashgar is 50-50 Uyghur and other ethnicities. And then the next morning we went to some place that was 80%. Am I close on my numbers?
I feel like it's higher than that, a higher percentage of Uyghur people than 50. And then
Okay.
somewhere where it was even higher, like 90 something.
Okay, so more like 70 and 90 maybe.
Yeah.
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 Okay, cool. I was like, didn't want to exaggerate. Okay, so here we are, our first night, we arrive in Kashgar, and then the next day, we head off on a journey. So Yeah, there we go. The Silk Road. So we are on the Silk Road. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about the textiles. I brought a bunch of them home as gifts for the holidays, which were super appreciated. But anything you want to say about them?
Yeah, I mean, definitely they're everywhere. They're outside. Again, sorry to keep, banging on about Iran, but like very similarly, like, they're outside on the buildings. You sit outside. You can, right, it's cold when we were there, but there are lots of rugs outside. I think the other thing that blew me away, and obviously talking about the Silk Road here, is just looking at, again, me being very new to all this, is just the geography is fascinating in terms of all the nearby bordering countries. So as I'm sure all of you know, you've got all the stans, you've got your Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mongolia, Russia. I'm sure I'm forgetting things. So it's fascinating to just be in that geographical location and then to feel some influences or to know that you're like relatively near K2 or just, places that you hear about. It's just wild to be in a place that has that sort of ancient history of the Silk Road that is surrounded by so many countries and right now is so fascinating in terms of the way it connects China with Central Asia and Europe and what that means, and the sense of the ancient history, but also how much things are changing and, modernization and tourism and all this. So yeah, anyway.
Megan, you want to talk about the trip to Yarkand, the trees, the solar farms, the windmills,
Yeah. Do we want to skip ahead? There's a couple more.
No, the dress up that goes across everything. We were dressing up here. But I mean, but the thing is this is China. This is what it looks like here, but I would say anywhere you go in China that has history, they love the dress up. And this is, what the Uyghur dress up looks like. But they love sharing and dressing and celebrating their culture.
Yeah, and I think any of you who've been have seen this, but basically, at least from what I saw, any sort of historical site you go to, say an ancient palace, or, we went to, whatever it was, Beijing or Xi'an or some ancient wall, depending on like the dynasty and the history and the period, people would dress up in that period, and there were just photo shoots everywhere, perpetual photo shoots. So again, I was just surprised that it's such a sort of dress up culture, which is kind of, fun. So when you go around in the town, you see all these shops where you can't buy the clothes, even they're so beautiful. They're like, no, these are just to rent for the photo shoots. And then I was like, well, I guess I can't do that because that'd be really inappropriate, cultural appropriation and all that stuff. But you just see photo shoots everywhere. Like, so it was just more, yeah, again, I didn't expect that, particularly because I've heard so much about cultural oppression that I didn't expect to see people dressing up all the time and doing photo shoots. So, yeah.
Oh, right. Megan, take it away.
Okay, so this is not, I think, not the video you're thinking of, but we came on our wanderings at night in Kashgar. We came across some like high school age kids who were dancing outside of a cafe just on the street. It's like a Friday night. And the reason I think is it's like a particular dance style that took us a bit to pick up. Not that we ever really did, but I think this was the best example that we saw. So I'll play the video. So that's what they were doing for fun on a Friday night. And we'll head into Shache, which is Yarkand County. This is a area that lies at the northern foot of the Kunlun Mountains. It's a bit of a desert oasis and has a lot of art and culture and a very, very high percentage of Uyghur people that live there. I think so 90-something%. So there's three main historical districts. You have the King's Mausoleum, the Garmin Road, and then Ordoqul. And our time in Shache was mainly a chance to connect with local people, as you'll see from our photos and videos. But it was all it was completely unplanned, and solely at the behest of the locals inviting us to join in on their dancing, on their celebrations, and just coming up and talking to us, which seemed to be a fairly common occurrence. So this is what we were talking about before. I'll play this. So you'll see Tag, Susie, and I, we were invited by the locals to come up onto this platform and dance with them. This was in the middle of a giant food market, kind of in the center of the city, where a lot of people, I think, gather during the day and just hang out with one another and dance and play music and eat food. So we had a good time joining them. Susie, do you have any comments?
No comments other than they seem to dance a lot. Just saw a lot of dancing, did not expect to see so much dancing, all ages. And yeah, that's it really, a lot of dancing, a lot of shoulders.
Well, and I want to add that we went to that one, and then we were just walking around, and somebody asked if they'd seen Westerners. Yes, they've seen Westerners. I want to also note that it's a place people go to hike. They go for the beauty of the surrounding ecologies, which are profound, like some of the most beautiful lakes, deepest lakes in the world, the mountains, like Megan said, K2 is right around the corner. So, but the friendliness of just thinking they could drag people in like that don't speak the Uyghur language to dance with them. And here's one of the gals that pulled us all in the local fashion. Is your dancing video here, Megan?
Yes. So
Okay.
this very kind and welcoming woman saw us dancing in the local market and she started talking to us. She was very excited to have foreigners visiting, as I think it's relatively uncommon. So she invited us to talk with her and then to go to this other public area where there was more dancing. And yeah, so at first it was just dancing, but then she offered me a traditional hat, and of course I put it on. And then a few minutes later, she also offered me to wear a traditional dress. And then suddenly I found myself dressed in the local traditional fashion, which I heard turned out to be what they wear to weddings. I think someone said this. So I think I was supposed to marry and stay forever, but I did not. I will show you how that looks. The tie commentary.
And you can see how excited she is to get Megan dressed up. They were all so happy, and there's a giant audience. You're not seeing the audience, like it was like a giant audience. It very like respectfully just come to witness and appreciate. It was I wish I would have taken more video of the audience because they were just in wonder. And a reminder that this place where we are is a place tourists don't go, because it's like there's no reason to go there. There's not a lot to see if you were a tourist. We really wanted to go to a place where the culture was, super prevalent to, understand the culture. And this is like 92% Uyghur. So that was our reason for being there. And yet we were so welcomed and encouraged, and the dancing was fantastic. And we didn't see enough of you, Megan. Why did you turn it off? We didn't get to see you dance.
I didn't put the video of me dancing. Just wanted for dancing.
We can upload the full uncut and that later. Because
this went on for like 45 minutes, just so everybody knows. This is you saw a little clip of, you know, us dancing one dance after another that turned into the costume that, you know, so it wasn't a short moment. It's a, you know, we just spent the day in relationship, in learning, in the woman that is dressing vegan was just telling us how, you know, she like quite insistently, you know, how amazing China is, and like how much she loves it, and that she was so happy we were there. She was quite a character.
This lady who you see on the lady who was wearing the heart sunglasses, I just, you know, I gave my sunglasses for her because they went with all her gold bling. And she just did a whole dance to my phone, like just dancing in the phone, like we were in the music video. And then as you were saying, if like all around, I'd say maybe there were like 50 people, sort of older ladies and gentlemen sort of sitting, hanging out, watching, sometimes going in. So this area there was a lot of just like, you know, sitting around, you know, in community, just people hanging out. Like it was, you know, cold. It was definitely the coldest place on the trip, winter season. But people were very much sort of hanging out in the street, you know, just around. It wasn't like everyone's shut away or, you know, we just went with the flow. We were like, okay, let's go this way and just explore.
Oh, good. The youth. Yay.
Yeah, here's another video of us interacting with some teenagers. I believe in the video they're saying that they are 16 or 9th grade.
Which grade? 几年级？九年级，初三。The third year。他15岁。他问你是不是15岁？16岁，我16岁。
Sorry, 16.
Yes.
Yes.
They're very friendly.
And they were ditching school, Mohammed told us.
Also, just to add, as I'm sure everyone knows, but I didn't realize, you know, it's all one time zone. So, you know, you travel hours and hours and hours on the plane, and then you arrive and you're in the same time zone. So for me, I kind of liked it because we didn't start. I'm not a super early morning person, so it meant we could. I think the business day or the work day starts at 10 a.m. You know, so things just start late, and then they finish late. So when, you know, I think we went to the supermarket one Friday night. It was, I don't know, 11 p.m. and there are like loads of kids out in the supermarket. So it was just interesting, even just the thing like, oh, it's one time zone. The day starts later here, you know, just like random stuff like that. I had no idea.
What's next, Megan? Oh, good. So here's the so we're driving here, and I think that was another one of our, so this is like day 2. This is another one of our amazing shockers, which was the profound number of trees that had been planted for the deforestation. So yeah, to get a sense of that. Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, so yeah, this is one of the things I think stuck with me the most, is driving from city to city, through the fields and the desert regions, and we just saw thousands and thousands of planted poplar trees, and the trees are specifically chosen because they help to negate the wind and the sand from sandstorms in order to protect the roads and the locals. So they grow very strong and straight, so it's like a shield of trees that also helps clean the air, of course. And you'll hear in the video Mohammed talking about the government renovated homes as well.
Now we are in the countryside of Yarkand. So about like another 10 minutes, we will arrive to the town center, and in there you will see lots of tall buildings. But here, just farmlands, and all of these houses are like newly reconstructed farmer houses. So the government actually helping the farmers to build better quality houses. So there is actually no more dangerous houses now. Before, most of the houses were built with mud bricks. When there's an earthquake or a heavy rain, that could be dangerous. But now most of the farmers' houses are built with fire bricks or concrete. Look on your left, those trees are all almond trees. They're all almonds.
Yeah, I think I forgot about him saying that. So, it's one of the things that you see first in the how China brought everyone out of poverty, the PBS censored film about that, where you watch, the investment in things like making housing safe, which is both kind of great and also, if it's your old home, hard. So it's like he's witnessing these farmhouses and like how great it is that they're being rebuilt for the farmers because they're not safe, even as his house for the same reason wasn't safe. That the whole family was moved out to other housing to make it safe. He also got to feel like losing your home. So it's a complicated thing that's happening in the poverty alleviation and the making people safe. It's got its good sides and its hard sides. So I'm sure it's true for those farmers we passed also.
Now we are in the
One of the other things, oh, here we go. Were the I took this photo from the plane, so it's hard to see, but it's so densely farmland. Like I was trying to show a picture of just like how dense the farmland was. And also you kind of can't see it, but like how many seas of solar panels there are that just go on and on and on. And we saw some on our drive, and you can't really see it in the photo, but maybe in the video.
Yeah, so you'll see in this video the ocean of solar panels that went on for miles and miles. It was really an incomprehensible amount of solar panels that the government installed in the desert region as part of its green initiatives and the switch to renewable energy. So it might be a little blurry, but it's like you'll see the sea of dark panels in the back.
That's insane. It's just endless.
because there is so much sunlight,
Right.
we make use of it.
That had to have gone on for like 10 plus minutes. Like we went miles with just solar panels and solar panels.
Yeah. I think if I'm understood correctly, in one recent year, something like almost a third of the electricity generated in China was from solar here. So again, just like the scale, the number of solar farms, the number of trees, all of this is just, the scale was kind of mind-boggling, the distances, everything.
The other thing they have there, because it's a desert also, is a lot of the wind farms are there too. So also we heard from Mohammed how they used to heat, because it is cold, as we can attest. It is very cold. And so the way they used to heat, and in his mud building, was coal. And so he talked about the problem of coal, how it burned down houses, how bad it was for your lungs, and how he as a young boy would have to take the wheelbarrow and collect the coal and wheel it back, and how heavy that was and how hard that was. So it's a transition from coal and all of its horrible effects to the earth and to the people, etc., that is now solar and wind. So that was interesting to be able to witness and hear his stories of. Vast nature.
Yeah.
Susie, talk about this since it was your first time in the snow.
I know. So this was near, I believe, the border with Tajikistan and not too far away from K2. We went on a mega drive. I get the impression that long drive, I come from a very small island. So I think for them, it's sort of spending 8 or 9 hours in a van during the day is like not a big deal. So I think we were going to go and see like a famous lake, but we went here. And so we just went on a really big walk and hike. And there were some places you could stay. There were, some gift shops. We had lunch. But it was, I think one of the things about this trip that surprised me so much is how much if you're into nature, like there's a lot of nature to experience. There's a lot of beautiful nature. And, this felt obviously very, very different from being in town, as Jodie and Megan are describing. I think what I really sensed compared to some of the other places we went to was this is a place that is going such rapid modernization right now. Our guide thought that in 10 years or 20 years time, the city could be really, really, really much more sort of like of a techie city. I don't know, if that's a correct assessment or not, but he was saying, there's no reason why it couldn't be like a little Shenzhen in 30 years time, which is like that Silicon Valley. So that was kind of mind-boggling because he was talking about his childhood experiences, which sounded like, like a really, really different experience of, waking up every morning and slaughtering sheep for the market and this sort of thing, to now talking about being this sort of high-tech city. So I think when we were, in the city, it just definitely there was the sense of like, wow, there's a lot of change. And then we came out for a sort of day of nature, and it was yeah, just a beautiful change of scene. And yeah, went for a nice day out.
And also just want to say the bus drivers rule for the bus drivers is they get every 2.5 hours a 15-minute or 20-minute break. And so even that, all the places that you have along the way to stop, to take care of the bus drivers, the connection to safety that was always present, the concerns, the roads were amazing. The concern for everyone's safety was part of pretty much everything we did, that you would run into that consideration in some way. But even just the places that we would stop to waylay between the drives had culture in them, had some form of culture, some form of delight. At one of them we went in and I went in the restaurant, like they always have, they have like a place to shop and a restaurant and the toilets. And so I went in the restaurant and there was only one other couple there, and the guy had a keffiyeh on and I had my keffiyeh on. And so I walked up to him and I was like, thank you, for wearing your keffiyeh. Come to find out, he lives around the corner from me in Santa Monica and I live in Venice. And he's a French photographer who had just fallen in love with Xinjiang. Which we hope to interview later. But the concern for our lives in every way, the concern for everyone's lives, and we were just one of them, was also super interesting. Okay, we're back in Kashgar. Megan, tell us about the mosque.
Yeah, so I briefly mentioned it earlier. The Aidka Mosque is, I believe, the largest mosque in the region, which you're able to visit. Some of the mosques are only for local use, but this one was open to the public, so we got to go inside. And it's very unique mosque, very open on the inside with lots of places for praying in this open area in the center. And I think we all found it very tranquil in its simplicity. It was originally built in 1442 by the order of the governor, and there's, I think, about 17,000 square meters, so it can accommodate quite a few people. They say up to 20,000.
Yeah, and with one of the people who was with us was, I've been to, mosques in different countries, and some of them are quite bling, right? Like some of them go full on. And so the gentleman who was with us was saying like he appreciated the simplicity of the mosque, because he was saying, I forget, he'd been to Dubai or Abu Dhabi somewhere, and he was saying like there, when you go and you pray, you're so distracted by the bling, then you feel poor, then you feel resentful, but here you don't, you can just be simple and spiritual. So it was just interesting hearing, one person's reflection on, like different types of mosques. And my understanding is, I think this region has one of the highest number of mosques per capita in the world. So I think the number of mosques has increased something like threefold in the last 50 years, something like that. I think it's like 25,000 mosques in the region. So it's a lot. I visited the Muslim quarter in Xi'an as well. So that's the only other place I got to sort of experience the culture, but it was beautiful. It was peaceful. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you'll see some more, I think.
So if you look at the mosque on the right-hand side, the steeple is super close and the other one isn't. And the reason for that is there was somebody who owned the land next to it, and they wouldn't move. They had the rights to the land, so they had to build around the old house. So that's why it has its strange looks. Yeah, you want to go to the, okay. Oh, you guys talk about the supermarket.
Yeah, this was our one of our Friday night outings. We went to the supermarket. I think this is just a fun touristy thing to do, is to go see what's available. So we have a couple videos.
So I'm sorry we don't have the sound, but I can tell you, I think, so A, it was open super late. It was big, it was busy. There were loads of like rows and rows, as you'll see, rows and rows of like nuts and dates and seeds and just like row after row. And then here you can see the like the sweets in the supermarket, all these like pastries and sweets. But yeah, it was just like fascinating. Yeah, these are all the seeds, like, or candies, I can't remember. No, this is still the sweet department. But yeah, really big supermarket, lots of different things. I think I even saw camel milk. But yeah, just amazing like dates and seeds. That was what stayed with me the most.
And then contrasted to the food market outside.
About to have my noodles in the market. We are Saturday in the market. We're going that way to go. Look how good that looks. Yay, nice noodles, sweet babies. Good to be in the market.
Yeah, sorry for all the camera wobbling. I'm wearing the same waistcoat I bought at that market. So I bought this little waistcoat. Some of us bought waistcoats. Yeah, it was just a big market that you can go for all your like food, clothes. There was a live market that I avoided. But yeah, I bought a cool sweatshirt as well. And then I got some veggie noodles here and just was chilling.
So yeah, also just want to say about the market, especially we went to two different ones very close to each other. One like the more touristy one, and then one that's just really for the local, like it's farther away, so more it's just for the locals. And I feel like what was profound for me there was watching them set up, and the whole just like, they're just like the guy in the picture with the watermelon. They just set up and they sit there. They're not worried about selling. They're just worried about being there to serve your need if you need something. And also, you know, the guy with the watermelon, it's like so much they're just cutting the watermelon. That's really not to sell. That's for you to taste in case you want to buy a big watermelon. The just the ease of shopping. Nobody's like pushing. It's not a pushing situation. It's a more communal situation. So yeah, there's a bunch of the folks we ran into in the different marketplaces. They're so fabulous and fun. Yeah, the architecture, Susie, you can talk about how much it reminded you. I kept saying, I feel like I'm in Tehran.
Yeah, it was interesting because you'd on the outside, you just thought you'd go into some like not very exciting, you know, there'd just be like a door, it didn't look particularly interesting. And then you'd walk in the door and it would be some like really like ornate so-called coffee shop that's got like, I don't know, just like just as you can see, like really ornate walls and ceilings and textures and colors. Um, you know, it was freezing outside, always very, very hot inside anywhere we went. I noticed like a lot of like I think in the bottom left place, you know, you would see a lot of women sort of out on ladies' night, like on Saturday night, like all dressed up, a lot of makeup, women out together, sometimes, you know, with the children too. But it's certainly, you know, comparing it to other sort of places with big Muslim cultures, you know, women were out and about, they were social, they were dressed up. At least, you know, in the time I spent there, that's what I saw.
Well, and we also learned from Muhammad that, you know, he likes going out with the guys and his wife likes going out with the girls. the girls, and then you know, not even with the kids, that the women like going out for their nights, girls' nights.
All right. So, the Uyghur people speak Uyghur. It's their native language. You'll see many signs in both Uyghur and Mandarin. From speaking with locals, we learned that school is conducted solely in Mandarin, and though, you know, children, they grow up speaking Uyghur, many can't read it because they were never taught. So there's definitely this feeling of like a loss of a mother tongue, though, you know, people, they did tell us, they acknowledge that they want their children to learn Mandarin because they have many more opportunities. But there's still this loss, you know, and I think this is a pretty universal problem with the creation of nation states in a national language. It's difficult to retain something when there isn't the motivation to retain it. So there's this gradual loss that occurs. Of course, you know, some parents did say they still teach their children to read Uyghur. So, you know, they all seem to speak it very well from what I could gather.
Yeah, because like Mohammed said, they speak it at home so that kids know how to speak it, but where they learn to read and write is at school, and that's in Chinese and Mandarin.
Yeah.
Which is sad. I told them that I work with a lot of indigenous communities to try to save the language. And I said it needs to be, you know, how do you create the space where they can have the space to read together and learn and not lose. It's such a beautiful, beautiful language. But again, like perfect for this slide, the old versus the new, which is the struggle across China and across the world. But I think one of the things for me is, like, you know, I come from knowing my great grandparents. He was a potter, and Mohammed's grandfather was a potter, so I felt really close to him. And my great grandfather, when I would visit them, they lived in a log cabin with a dirt floor. So, you know, in the 60s, when I would visit them, I would be confused that they lived with a dirt floor. And my grandmother would explain to me that that's what home was for them, and they didn't want to move. And I was like, you know, it grosses me out, Grandma. I don't want to go. So it's, you know, the age-old problem of old versus new. But to have Mohammed be our guide was such a treat, because, you know, he was able to tell us like how much things had changed, like in a very short period of time. So his childhood was on Sundays, he would go to the animal market with his dad, who would bargain to get sheep. And they didn't have scales, so his dad would like pick up the sheep and know how much it weighed, and he knew the places to hold the sheep to see like if it would like had the right amount of fat. And then he would pull them aside and he would give them to Mohammed, like an 8-year-old, to hold until he had like 200 sheep. And then they would march them back up the hill to their house, and the sheep would go up the stairs and be on the roof of their house. And then every morning, Mohammed and his 2 brothers would go up and slaughter 12 sheep. And then, and so you can imagine blood and guts and everything. And the girls would like take the blood and guts, and they would wheelbarrow it over to the trees down the street and pour the blood and guts on the trees. And the boys would slaughter the sheep, and they would cut the sheep into the little pieces so they're for their dad's kebab store. And then they would go to school. So that was what their life was like. And so when I said, you know, who has it better, you or your kids? And he said, I feel I did, because I had a life that was free, and nobody ever cared about me, and I could explore, and I lived this really connected to the earth and life. And, you know, now his kids are on video games. And so like in a 20 years, you know, I think 30-year period of time, like, cause he's like 40, you're watching an extreme example of like what took from my family, maybe 120 years. So it happened really quickly, like his family home. So where you see his grandfather, the potter there, it's now part of the old city, like I call it the Disneylandification of China. Because it's one of the things I hate about China is like you go to these old places and instead of seeing them, you see the Disneylandification of it. You know, you see it like fixed up and kind of like AI'd. I mean, it's like me looking at AI, or a facelift. You know, it's just like it's not the thing. So there, you can go to the old city where he lived. It's been preserved, but it's not itself. It's not what it was. It's not where he lives. You can see that it wasn't safe, and the argument for having to move everybody to be living out of it because it wasn't safe. And you see this places where it's crumbled, etc. And yet it was home and it was a way of life. So you get to see that complexity there, but you see that everywhere in China. I mean, everywhere we went in China, you see it's like where the old was, they're bringing in the new. It's part of the bringing people out of poverty. And again, I remembered myself as a child not liking dirt floors. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we all really felt for Mohammed when he showed us around his childhood home, and we felt his, you know, his nostalgia and his sadness. And we have this video of him showing us around.
But the windows here in
It's hard. You can't hear him explaining you know, to us, but where Megan's walking out of had been the kitchen. Oh no, had been the living room. The kitchen was very, very small. It was off to the right. And this is the courtyard, and those are the stairs they used to take the sheep up, which is just quite staggering to think about. I mean, as we witnessed it. His mom, which I can totally understand because home sweet home to me is so important, was the saddest of all of them to lose her home. They, you know, were given a ton of apartments and other homes so that everyone that was in the home has a home. But yeah, I remember watching the, you know, getting people out of poverty video and thinking that would be the hard part for me, is that it means you know, letting go of what has been, that was home. So yeah. So this is the Susie and Tig exploration to find coffee. And this, they go, come join us at the coffee shop. Check out this coffee shop.
Although you may not hear what the music is. Let's see.
Oh.
So it was Tupac was playing, and so Tig was doing commentary on the fact that we were in Kashgar at the coffee shop listening to Tupac. So yeah, but hopefully we'll, you know, sort out audio next time. But yeah.
So yeah, the cultural weaving was everywhere, and they were very cool. This was a very, very cool coffee shop. And there's our crew of intrepids in front of the old city. Have we, is there anything, Megan, you wanted to share that we haven't shared yet?
This is the end of our slides. So do we want to do any Q&A, or do we want to?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure if you wanted anything to share before we open it up for questions.
Okay, no, I think we can open it up.
The first being, will we be organizing another trip? No. That's a full-time job, but we are trying to work with, Megan has created an amazing page, which she can share, of how you can travel. We encourage, why we travel is to encourage other people to travel, that to end wars, to become friends with, not enemies of, to humanize those that others are attempting to dehumanize for you. You know, that China is not our enemy, and that China is made up of 1.4 billion people. and they're humans. So when we think about a war in China, it is not, it's not an abstract. It's very real. It's full of very beautiful people. We hope we've seen many of them, have we shown the pictures. So to help humanize that war, any war, is not okay. It is a violation of humanity, of the planet. And it creates trauma on that just, you know, feeds on itself. So there's lots of tools for you on the page that Megan has made and is continuing to make. And there's travel agencies there available to help you. And we even, you know, but also just want to say it's not that hard. Even the whole group that went on the trip with us at the beginning, like, oh my God, what's this going to be like? And it was easier than anyone thought. And Susie and Megan are going to do another report back on their experiences of leaving Xinjiang and going off on their own as sole travelers. So that's coming up, and I guess Megan will post how you can sign up for that one.
Yeah, and just to echo that, like I had nearly gone to China right out of grad school, ironically, not ironically, but to actually work on that movie Kill Bill, but then it fell apart. Well, whatever. But anyway, so I thought, oh, it's going to be very hard getting a visa. Oh, if I've worked in film or media, is that going to be weird? But touch wood, you know, just went to the consulate, really friendly guy at the consulate who was like joking. They turned it around super quickly. You know, I had changed my flights. I was worried like, oh, my flight information is wrong on my application. They didn't care. And like I said, I was just didn't realize how huge tourism was. Like there's all these YouTubers who are going, I would just go on YouTube and just find random people. There's like, you know, there's some German guy who's got loads and loads of, I mean, there's, you know, whatever your vibe is, if you want sort of history, if you want culture, whatever you want, nature. I was really excited to see the pandas in Chengdu. Yeah, I'm a nature person, so I really enjoyed that. But I think, you know, like I said, this part that is, you know, so steeped in one issue that it was so tourist focused and was just a surprise. And so very, very happy to share learnings. Obviously, you can use, everyone uses their cell phones to pay, and then you have interpretation apps. You can talk into your phone, and then it translates into the language. It's definitely somewhere where having a cell phone is night, you know, life is night and day different if you have a cell phone or not, and everyone does. But you know, I don't know what it was like to travel, you know, 10 years ago. I'm sure very different, but I think this is a really interesting moment to go. And I traveled around by myself afterwards, and really, you know, it was just very doable. Took the bullet train, just booked places to stay on the day, changed my mind, you know, that kind of thing. So it was a real privilege. And now I've come back just wanting to learn more, and I've got, you know, so many questions, and I'm also in total cognitive dissonance because I don't think I've ever been somewhere where it was so different to what I'd seen, and so I'm still learning how to talk about it, and you know, I assume, you know, this conversation could be, you know, interpreted and weaponized and edited in all sorts of ways, but I'm here in good faith. I'm here to learn, and I'm, you know, happy to, you know, dig into questions. And yeah, thank you.
Also, just there at, you know, places that like museums and places like that, English translators are available to, you know, like rent or, you know, pay for by the hour if you need, like, especially in places like that. And the travel agencies that we've listed on the site are also there available, you know, if you want to book one to go with you and put together your own trip. But the translation, your phone is a translation device, and everyone in China is very used to using them. I just want to say, going to Xinjiang, what was surprising is that Mohammed, our travel agent, our tour guide, he learned to speak English and French from the people visiting the region. So, you know, he'd learned from them, and then also is able to make an enormous, I think, 100,000 a year from being a tour guide. There's and a lot of his is around people coming to trek and experience or bicycle. I think a lot of them come to do long bicycle rides. Where we were is on this very long, famous highway that was built connecting Pakistan to China, that is part of the new Silk Road redo. Other questions?
Oh,
Yeah, and just to
sorry,
add,
Ben's got a question about film. I didn't get a chance, but I'd love to. I did get a chance to see a bit of like, the sort of contemporary art scene in Beijing. That was fun. I just, ran off to one neighborhood that has a lot of contemporary art. I have an American friend who's been based in Beijing for decades and is involved in sort of, connecting Hollywood with China, but we didn't actually get to see each other. But I'd love to go to a film festival or just lean into that. So yeah, nice to sort of meet you, Ben.
yeah, and just to add to about the traveling, we're not going to be doing another trip, but after organizing the last one, I do feel very, adept at answering any questions that anybody may have. So I'll send resources in our travel page in a follow-up email, but if you do have any further questions, feel free to send me an email and I will answer it to the best of my abilities.
Any questions I missed, or does anybody have a question to ask?
Well, I will just jump in and say hats off to you guys for your demeanor and expression is, it really captures authentic passion for the people. And a lot of it for me, the core of it is like that kind of bridge building that comes from the heart. So thank you for expressing it and coming across that way. I think that's, part of central to the process of these kinds of bridge building. So thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you for saying that. That's what we intend. So it's always nice when someone witnesses it.
Absolutely. Yeah, awesome.
Dawn?
Yeah, and then and I'm just curious, according to propaganda from the U.S. government, there's oppression of the people there by the Chinese, and you hear about like constant, allegations of things like concentration camps or something like that. Were you able to ask anything about that or hear gripes or was that like something you didn't talk about? I'm guessing that it's exaggerated, but maybe there's some truth to it. So that's what I'm curious to find out.
So Dawn, I'm sure there's some truth to it, so I'm sure that like all governments, they can be, pretty difficult. I don't know if it's, I don't know much about it. Our guide was in one of the re-education camps, so we know it existed. We also saw the attempts of the Chinese government to try to raise up everyone out of poverty and give them the support they need and make them safe. So I'm sure it's super complex, but we didn't get into that. We didn't go to get into that. We went to just humanize people that were, not really being humanized.
Thank you.
And I can also point you to some interesting, esteemed people who really are experts who dig into it. I think, unfortunately, every country most likely has human rights violations, and those matter everywhere. It's not because my country violates human rights that it doesn't matter if somewhere else does. All human rights violations should be taken seriously. Now, I didn't go there as an expert. I wasn't with experts. I wasn't doing data research, and I'm now learning about all the discussions. I think one thing that I am learning is a discussion about genocide is different to a discussion about serious human rights violations. So I think that's a distinction that sometimes is sort of all mixed up. But I can certainly link to some expert analysis, people like Jeffrey Sachs who've written about the issue and who say like, that there's a genocide, a lot of people who are experts and esteemed would really have questions about that. But does the government, are there serious allegations, incredible allegations of human rights violations? Unfortunately, most likely so. At the same time, you do have 200 million tourists going there with cell phones. You have people from all over the world going. You have, life expectancy increasing, the number of people increasing, a lot of mosques, so there's a lot of, it opens up a lot of questions for me, and I'm learning more. But I think we should be able to talk about it without just being cancelled, like, I'm sure me being here will be used in a way to say I'm XYZ. And I think we should be able to say, you know what, I'm open, I'm learning. There are a lot of questions to be asked. But we should be able to do it without immediately shutting down the conversation and being cancelled. And I think, we've seen that, unfortunately, with Palestine and the shutdown there. And I think this, unfortunately, is like that, but on speed. So, yeah. But I'm really open. I'm really open to learning. And I know a lot of people I respect have really serious concerns. And I'm, open to learning.
Thanks, Dawn. John, you're next, and then Michael. You just need to unmute, John.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Don first. That's okay.
No.
Quick thing. How many days were you all there? What was the cost? Because that hadn't been mentioned at all. Because cost is an important factor for people who travel to China.
Well, that was the cheapest place we went in China. So it's, I forgot, what was our hotel room? It was kind of crazy cheap. $30 a night, was that?
Yeah, it was
something like that. Yeah.
Yikong, altogether, how much was the trip?
Well, we paid every little thing separately, so that's a little hard to, we didn't, this wasn't a tour. We were just friends traveling together. This wasn't part of the tour. We just went further than the tour. So everybody paid for their own stuff, and somebody bought this meal and somebody bought that meal, but I can tell you, like, a whole meal for all of us was, could be like $30.
I'm a little bit frustrated.
The most expensive thing was flying from Beijing to Umrishki. I'm saying it wrong. And that was
Kashgar or Urumqi.
We flew to Urumqi and then we went to Kashgar from there.
Okay. Well, I first traveled to China in 1974. I lived there for 7 years. And last time I was in Xinjiang was 2014. And I also lived there for a year in 1987. I've been to Xinjiang 7 times. So it's wonderful to hear what you saw, and it's a very limited part of Xinjiang because it is a very complex story.
Yeah.
And I've been 2014. I've been following what was going on in terms of the re-education, and there was a huge exaggeration of the numbers of people that were in re-education, and also, but at the same time, there were human rights violations.
Yeah.
And today we still face the issue. The American government keeps forcing the drumbeat that there's forced labor in Xinjiang, and that part really isn't true. I mean, forced labor in the sense that people have to work, and the only opportunity may be for working is working in a Han-owned factory in the town that you're particularly in, but that's wage slavery. It's a different form of slavery.
You mean like around the world? John,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because we did talk to people about the cotton situation and the slavery in the cotton fields. We were able to talk to a lot of people about that. And one of, first of all, the shock, again, like I was shocked about almost everything I learned. But the shocking thing is, I think something like 90% of the cotton fields are owned by the Uyghurs, which we didn't realize. And then our guide, he was just like, slavery, like, we have jealousy towards the cotton pickers because they worked for a month and they get the entire winter off. They make so much money, they have the entire winter off just to hang out. So he was like kind of jealous of them, which was like, he was like slavery. And you know, I guess I didn't mention, but often we would say, like, you know, what we want to, we're here to like learn from you, and what would you like Americans to know, and things like that. And I would say over and over again, it was, please leave us alone. You know, you're just hurting us, you know, especially when you would talk about the cotton. That, don't you understand that you're not caring about us if you're telling these lies? And then also, I guess I didn't understand that, like, pretty much all the cotton is picked by machine. And as we were explained, the one pickers, they pick the most expensive cotton, and they're expert cotton pickers, and that's passed down through generation, and it's a prized job. And so, yeah, that was one of the things that I forgot to talk about. But so thank you for bringing that up. And John, I would love to have a conversation with you if you could. I'll find your email. I'd love to learn. You know, like we had like 4 days there, so or you know, 5 with travel days. So I would love to learn and see some of your pictures from the past, and maybe you and I could have a conversation to share what past Xinjiang looked like. That would be amazing. I would love that.
A quick comment is, what the primary economic engine in Xinjiang is something called the China Production and Land Reclamation Corps, the Pingtuan. And basically, it's a huge state corporation, the only place in China left where there are actually state farms, where a lot of the people that work in the farms are paid farm workers. And they're also responsible for all the machinery that picks that cotton, as well as a whole series of other industries. So, and I'd love to talk about China. We can do that elsewhere. Thank you.
I'd love to do that, and I'd love to know if you are going to go again, because I just think it would be, yeah, fascinating to hear your perspective after, you know, a time gap. So yeah, thank you for sharing, and would love to hear more.
Michael, you're next.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear if Mohammed talked about his experiences in the re-education camps, and whether he felt like, you know, what the process was by which he was one of the people selected that had to go there, how he felt about that. Did he talk about any of that to you guys?
He did, but didn't give us permission to share. So
Okay.
yeah.
So he's obviously maybe a little anxious about what he has to say, it sounds like.
No, he just said, I don't really, you know, want to share it, basically. Like, but I do want to say it was interesting being there with Susie, because Susie had come with CODEPINK to Pakistan when Obama was droning the young men the same age as Mohammed when he was picking up. But the United States would just decide, because they were this age group, they would just send a drone over them and turn them into little pieces of flesh on walls. So, you know, that part was not lost on us.
Well, I've read that that in Xinjiang, the Chinese, what they were doing was trying to apply an approach to dealing with terrorism that actually followed the model presented in the United Nations. You know, that, so I mean, and that even they did some things that a lot of the approach they took was similar to Denmark in terms of dealing with Islamic radicalism in their society. But anyway, that's what I've read. But I just thought it'd be interesting to hear what Mohammed had to say. But I understand that if he said he didn't want you to talk about it, you can't talk about it. But yeah, it would be good to have a kind of a presentation of sort of what the people who've actually been more deeply involved with Xinjiang have to report.
Yeah, I agree.
In the way in which it counters the American propaganda about it because it's pretty thick and it's pretty effective with a pretty broad spectrum of opinion in the US, which is disturbing. And it's
So
ridiculous
I would say, Michael, that's
to be accusing them of genocide when they can't recognize the genocide that is blatantly obvious in Gaza. And you know, I've read no one has died in Xinjiang. There is no evidence of anyone ever having died at the hands of the Chinese government. So it's kind of a weird genocide in which no one has died. You know, so the whole situation is very strange. But anyway.
So, yeah, we, because, everybody wants to silence us around this, we don't want to be what we're not. And what we are is peace activists. So we went to be peace activists, to be connecting our cultures, to be in relationship with, and we'll leave all that exploration and deep dive into other people, and we'll share it when we find it. And like Susie said, she's doing her own research. Like when you're there, then you want to know more, you want to understand more. So I think it's we leave that to others. It's not anywhere near a capacity that we have at CODEPINK. All I can tell you is it was the smoke that made me concerned, because when words are used that are meant to weaponize people against each other is when I get upset.
Yeah. No, and I think it's very valuable to try and humanize the others that the U.S. Engages in aggression towards. And that's what you're trying to do. And that was communicated in this webinar.
Thank you. Any other questions so we can let everybody go? It's been a very lovely that you showed up to hear our stories. We appreciate it. It's why we go. And we have a couple more coming up. Oh, Nigel has his hand up. I'm sorry, I missed Nigel. Or it just went up. Nigel?
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Nigel.
Oh, that's good. No, it's just